Explain why.
Well, the question was put to him, and he slightly sidestepped it very diplomatically, was that basically, did Paratici, obviously he was no longer there, but a clear, strong, very Juventus links, basically. Did he have an input? Did he have... I mean, Lang basically didn't really engage in that one and said, we take soundings, but, and there's lots of, Yeah, I mean, it's obvious to me. I mean, I'm with Jason on this one, in that basically, I think sometimes... we say, who have we heard from? You have to expect that the people within and the hierarchy within a football club, and Spurs fans have clearly got massive reservations about Johan Lang. But I would say fair play to him for fronting up, and it was difficult questions on Friday. But you have to trust and respect a football hierarchy at a club, that they speak, they're well informed, they're well rounded, and they know the talent on the market. And I do think that Bilic speaks really well. I mean, I have to say, you have to be devilishly handsome and incredibly well informed, and a brilliant journalist to have written such a good column with him.
All right, I did, yeah.
And I just thought that Bilic spoke really well, and I thought he gave a grounding to it. And I love the fact that sometimes when you hear about voices from managers or players past, and sort of insight into their mindset, and it really spoke well, I thought, to a strong mentality, to a really strong coaching philosophy. He's well known, isn't he, for often playing back three, back five. Basically, I'm not sure whether he even got the numbers to create that with Spurs right now, but I think he'll make them instantly harder to beat. And I think, let's be honest here, the most obvious thing, that Spurs fans weren't buying into Thomas Frank at all, and the simple fact of a change is seen as a positive by most fans.
The other thing as well is he's coach of the Champions League.
Yeah.
And one other point that Slaven makes in the piece is, Spurs operate on two planets. They've got the Premier League, where obviously they're really struggling, and they've got the Champions League, where they've got a really good chance to get into the quarterfinals. The last 16 draws should be okay for them. So they've got that chance to go into. They've got these almost like this two things. What I would say with Mark is that, if I turn it back on you, what would you have done? I mean, you had to move Frank on. You had to.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what would you have done? And if you look at you got to live in the real world, and that you can't just go and get your first job. Let's say Pochettino. Right, Pochettino, everyone's talking about Pochettino. Obviously, I know in Ollie's piece he talks about maybe they've actually played this wrong. I don't agree with that. Pochettino's not going to be available until the summer. So you've got to do something. And if you look at it, ideally you take somebody from within the club, but there wasn't anyone there. So what's the solution? I actually think it's quite a creative solution to a problem.
It's creative, but it's risky. I mean, we're talking even
there's always risk.
Even Juric at Southampton last year, similar path, came from Italy.
He's a different coach from Juric. He's a different coach.
Different squad at Southampton, I accept. But I just think with this appointment, they've got 12 league games. They've got no room for error. And if you're Spurs, your recruitment team, your football department should have had a list of people that had more credentials right now to succeed in the Premier League. If he comes in the summer, Igor Tudor, as a pre-season to work with his squad, then fine. But he's been parachuted in a situation with a squad he doesn't know, a league he doesn't know, and his first game is Arsenal at home. So it's a massive task. I think he will keep them up, but still, and he's got good credentials at big clubs he's been at, but still, it's a huge risk that Spurs should have diminished it a little bit by looking for somebody that's had at least experience of the Premier League.
There's no way, in my view, that Spurs go down. Absolutely no chance. The squad is too good for that. Yes, they've been massively underperforming, but I do think that Tudor will provide a new manager bounce. I think that the fan base will be energised by that. I mean, you could look at it as a bit of a poison chalice today, but I think that Tudor will see it as an opportunity, and he spoke about that opportunity on Friday.
I think it's a great opportunity, apart from the injuries. I think it's a great opportunity.
Absolutely. But I do think
with Carrick at Man United, when he first game, Man City, fantastic.
Yeah, but you have to take into account that about the injuries. Of course you do. But I think the fans, as long as they see the effort, then they're basically. I think as long as they see the performance, will be a lot different today, won't it? That is key for him today, because recently the problem with Thomas, Frank's teams were that clearly the players had lost heart. I mean that game afterwards that he was sacked from after Newcastle, that was the all-time low, really, because they were so poor in that first half. They were so poor against Man City, but at least they recovered in the second half and turned it round. So that was the difference. In my view, there's no... I mean, I do take on board a lot of Ollie's points in Ollie Holt's piece about kind of the way the club is drifting. frankly, I did say to Johan Lang, one of my questions was that basically, are the club competing enough? You look at what Ange Postecoglou said in recent interviews, saying that the club doesn't compete. I put forward this player, that player, and then basically signed Solanke and 3 kids because of...
That was a league, by the way.
Yeah, I tell you what, it was not really, I don't think, ever about how much they've spent on players, because their spend is really high. It's about actually backing it up with wage bills to attract the really upper echelon of the signings, basically, because time and again, football will always prove that what you spend on wages is where you finish. It's the one defining thing of football. It's amazing. If you don't know about it, go and have a look at it. It's incredible. And Spurs, frankly, finish where they spend on wages. That's the point. And I do think that Lang said, yes, we've got to, moving forward, we've got to be more, creative and strong on who we recruit. I think that the CEO, Vinay Venkatesham, basically is one of the best at engaging with the fan base. I do think the Spurs will turn it around, but we cannot expect Spurs from going from a crisis club, when Levy was ousted, into being completely rebuilt and renewed overnight. I think it's going to take time, but this summer is crucial for them. Not now. This summer is crucial about signing a better class of player, getting a long-term managerial appointment in, and moving forward. This club has got this strong foundations, but they might well be without Europe next season. And I think they have to build, but they have to build for the long term.
And both clubs' immediate focus, of course, will be at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, not least for Arsenal, Mark. And Andy Dunn in the Sunday Mirror, and we touched on it a little bit earlier on in the programme about what it will mean for Arteta, whether he was to win the league or not. Andy Dunn is pretty clear. He says, look, players are buying into Arsenal's vision of the future, and Arteta is its heartbeat. Even if he fails to win this title race, he is still a leader for a dynasty. So if he wasn't to win, he says, is it time for him to go? He says, absolutely not.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think Arteta should go if they don't win the league this season. I think if you're finishing second or you get into finals or semi-finals, you're doing a good job. But at some point, it has to make a breakthrough. But I mean, Arsenal, Jason and Cross, that prior to Arteta coming in, they were drifting for a lot, even under Wenger for quite a long time. And how many years were they out of the Champions League for? 5, 6 years. So it's got them back to where they need to be in terms of position to challenge. They've been unfortunate in that Man City have been around, and obviously Liverpool on the slot last season. But you can't just get rid of a manager for finishing second. I mean, that's Roman Abramovich sort of thing, and that doesn't happen nowadays. So I think Arteta stays regardless, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure there's a dynasty there, though. If they win the league, I don't think they're going to be one of these teams that will go on to dominate. I think City will be stronger next year. I think Liverpool will be better. I think Man United are showing signs they could be better. So in terms of now or never, I think it's more a case of they have to win it this season to give them a chance of winning it again, because if they don't win it this season, all the questions will be magnified and amplified, and the competition will be strong as well.
Do you not think that if they don't win it this season, that some questions have to be asked of Arteta?
Of course, yeah.
You have to. You can't just ignore the fact.
But not to the point where the questions are asked, you can't answer them on your go, because to your point about the Spurs thing, who would you bring in?
That's different. That is completely different. In the summer, it's complete. I'm sorry, that's a different scenario.
Who would replace Arteta and take them to the next level?
For me,
there's lots of coaches you've played before.
Well, you'd have to
name names, but I mean, it's a completely different ball game in the summer.
Yeah. You'd have to go for elite. I do think the one issue I take about the Arsenal
as well, and you would get elite, wouldn't you?
Yeah, of course you would, because it's a club on the up, and it's a high grade.
Well, who do you call elite? Because Tuchel's got the England job, Pochettino won't go to Arsenal, and then who do you call? Who's elite?
I think the problem that Arteta has is that if they don't win a major trophy this season, next season he could be a bit of a busted flush, because do the players really buy into it?
I agree with that.
Do the fans? I mean, when he delivers the end of season messages he's done traditionally on the pitch, saying we'll be back next season, do the fans really believe that? Because if you bottle it from here, and that it would be bottling it, then I think it's a long way back. Let's make no mistake about it. Arteta has done an incredible job at Arsenal. Absolutely astonishing. He's taken them from also-rans. But we're not talking about a club that you pat and patronise on the head here.
And they've invested.
Absolutely. They've backed him to the hilt. This is the longest time that Arsenal have been post-war without winning the title. and all of a sudden 22 years becomes 30 years, becomes 40 years, and all of a sudden you've got a club ailing.
It's ridiculous. That's not on Arteta.
No, I know, but the point that I'm trying to say is that Arsenal are an elite club.
Yeah.
And the point
elite
is
clubs
now,
win.
And they've gone back there, and you've got to, and Jason's
elite?
spot on, you've got